All right, hey guys, Sam here. We're Friday morning, December 22nd, and I had a request from a member to take a look at Litecoin to Bitcoin on Bittrex. So I've got it up here. This is the daily chart here. So despite the spike in volatility that we're seeing across all of crypto today, this is kind of an interesting coin or an interesting spread, I should say. That's holding its own pretty nicely. So this, looking back here, I brought this up just to give you some idea of this resistance that we keep bumping into, and perhaps an explanation as to why we keep bumping into it. So I'm just going to grab a straight fib pull, and I'm going to go up to my high here and down to my low. And lo and behold, I'm going to put this back on. It's easier to make the pulls. So you can see that we've got a reason for that. There's a pretty good explanation. So here's our infamous little hot box between the 618 and the 65. And we just keep coming up, testing it. Here we come up, we test the 50, can't get through. Looks like perhaps we're setting up for another test. Let me tighten that up just so we can get, yeah, there it is. So you can see we just come up a few ticks from the 65 and we keep getting rejected and getting rejected. So now, do we have a shot at getting through that? Well, let's take a look. So from a wave count, yeah, you can get an ABC into that, down into this final low, but as relates to the start of this current trend, I don't know that we need to count this as a 1-2. Let's kind of break into this part of the trend. I think we can take that off, proving that we know these prior highs are going to be resistance. Let's go down. Let's go down to the hourly. Let me open that up. Here's what I see. So it would be, you've got a very shallow 2 here. So that's the first point where you got to look at that and go, okay, well that's unusual, but in crypto, in particularly strong market like that, we know that 12% of the time we can see wave 2s that are that shallow. That's particularly shallow. So it doesn't even make the 38. So really strong market, but look here, we go right, right to the negative 618, and that we double top of triple top. Really, you could call that a quadruple top at the negative 618. So that's an extreme. So what that tells me is that it's trading technically. So let's see if we can get a count on this that makes sense. So it would be easy. So the easy thing would be to do this and go, okay, well there's my 3-4, and perhaps we've come into a double top. I think that's kind of a sloppy, lazy way to label it, and I would beg to differ on that count. I don't think that's what we have just yet. I think this still plays as our 1-2. This is our big move. This is the impulsive 3, but I don't think we're done here yet. I do not think we're done. And given that we know that those pivots up above, those prior highs are likely to be magnets and potentially some resistance that we're going to challenge, I'm going to push this up a bit and tell you what I see. And part of this is just from measuring it out, and a little bit of Elliott knowledge in terms of how we would expect to see the subdivision. So I'm going to just take a straight pull here. Man, my machine's running slow. I'm going to take a straight pull from my 2 to my 3 high. And lo and behold, we come right to our little hot box here for what I propose to you is the A wave. So just as we saw it on the daily, all the way up to those resistance where we went in between the 618 and the 65, right? It's our favorite little hot box. So we see that potentially here as the 4, but I do not think that's our 4. I think our 4 is over here, because I see right in here I can get a very clean 5 waves down into that as an A wave. I see this, so knowing that I'm likely to see 5 waves in my A wave, I see that as an A, and then I get a 1, 2, 3 into my B, and then here's this pattern that we see consistently across crypto, where we're getting the shallow C, shallow C. So given us that triangle pattern that we've seen repeatedly, so there's our little break here. So our first break is right here, and then we have the the move here. So what I see is that this is our 4, but an algo is not going to care about the Elliott structure. That's us trying to dance around the algo pulls. So what I think we have here is a 1-2. So if I label this up for you, what I think, so we gotta measure it. So potentially that's my 1, that's my 2, and we go up for a 3, 4, 5. We put that in a different color in a smaller degree. Let's go to subminuet. So let's look here. So if that plays, we'd be looking for some fib relationship here. Now we get through it. We get a little spike through the 6.5, but we know for a 2, it can be anywhere from the 50 to the 7.86. So that, to me, looks like a reasonable count with expectations for higher prices. So if I scrunch a little bit here, my machine is running slowly today. I've got so much open, that could be part of it. So that shows me, and gives me potential targets up here off of this as a 2. So my first target here, my larger target here. But if that's going to be a 3, the expectation would be we're going to go substantially higher, and we're going to be pushing all of that up to accommodate higher prices if this is going to hold. So this becomes our critical pivot. So if we're going to get an A, B, C into a 2 wave here, well, we need to start an impulsive move now. So we can't have a diagonal. So we have to now get impulsive here. So the expectation here is now that we're going to go into a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to play out in that third. So it's very technical. This plays well. So we need to see how it responds here. The first test will be up to this, whether it's we want to call it 3 or 4 times that we've tested that level. So that's, of course, going to be a tell. If we can get through that with some good volume, that would be interesting to me. And then, if we can get a pitchfork on this. Now on the pitchfork, I would draw it from this pivot because that is the lowest pivot. So putting that here, the assumption would be that perhaps we'd get our 1 and then a pullback on the 2 to set up another corner pocket. So potentially here, that's where you'd hit some resistance, and it plays with these prior highs for the 1 wave of our third of our 5th. So that certainly is an option here. But I would want to look at this on the larger degree. So I'd pull from here up to my third. I'd pull over to this lowest low. Now that looks like that's not offering any help. So I'm going to go over to my alternates and see if we get any geometry that seems to be working. Well, that's kind of interesting. So that tells me that perhaps I've got some good geometry here. So from my 2 low here to my 3 down to my A wave low, but this being the lower low, I would use that because I know algos will use that. So here it comes into our 1. We're down here. We hold in this zone. So that gives me good probability that we're heading up here, which could play. That could play. That looks like that's likely to be a contender in that zone for 100% the length of the 1 wave. But I really particularly like it up higher here. So I would be looking for, if we're going to get there, I would be looking for a reaction here because this geometry seems to be supporting the market. So I'd be looking for some sort of reaction here. I would like, of course, if we're getting long here, we want to see that. We want to see that break through and then challenge the upper parallels. So that's the count that I see there. I think that any pullback here, if we're going to get a 1-2 into the third of the 5th, can be bought because we can put a stop under this pivot here. So that's a reasonable spot to be getting long here in Litecoin to Bitcoin. If you like that trade, this is where you could put it under the 786 if you want to give it a little bit more room. But I would be operating under the assumption that that's my hard pivot, and I don't want to see that violated because I'm working from that as a 2. So if that is breached, then perhaps we're relabeling, and we end up with some sort of a truncated 5th and a double top here. Until I see otherwise, I think the play is still for higher prices. And we'll see if first test will be, can we get to the median line, and then what kind of reaction do we get there? Can we get through on our way to the upper parallel and then perhaps set up for a 4-5? So that's what I see there. I think that's definitely one to watch, and I think there are trades that are close by here. Perhaps a little pullback to the Vegas wave, give you an opportunity to get long. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it on that one.